Nick Saban retired.
Yeah.
The best coach, certainly of our lifetime. I think he's the best college football coach ever. What was your initial reaction, Ted?
Well, I guess I wasn't shocked. I was kind of surprised with how quick it all kind of unfolded. Um, he's done enough that obviously he's earned the right to retire whenever he wants and do so with dignity. And no matter what the outcome of the season was, this was an interesting season for him. As you heard, it took a lot out of him. From where they started to where they finished, pretty daggum impressive. Um, he's, it's interesting. I typically, whenever you talk about a coach that has won at a level like Saban, you typically think that they did something on the field that revolutionized the game. And it's hard to think about that really with Saban. He was just, I think he revolutionized how college football programs are put together, which is really totally different from really any other coach. It's usually about the X's and O's. And for him, it's more about the organization that he built at Alabama. And not to say that he's not great X's and O's, obviously he is, but the machine that he built really kind of tells you everything about Saban as a coach. He didn't want to just beat you on the field. He wanted to beat you in strength and conditioning, in the training room, in the lunchroom, like how you meet, when you meet, like how the buildings are built, like everything. Every single detail that they can beat you on is how he wanted to get his edge.
I completely agree. Now you look at the resume, and there's no need to go through all the accomplishments, but from the titles, the conference titles, to the award winners, to the draft picks, it's just insane, man. It's insane. But the other massive effect he had was on the state of Alabama, that university in the city of Tuscaloosa. I
Oh
don't
yeah.
even know how you measure the economic impact he had on that community. He was drastically underpaid, but you mentioned it. I think when you talk about his legacy, people are always going to mention the titles, but I think his true legacy is the fact that he shaped the standard in the expectations when it comes to how a college football program operates. And that starts with X's and O's, right? He was the 3-4 defense guy in
Mm-hmm.
college football for a while. And some of the coverage stuff, zone match coverages, like he's credited with some of that stuff. He's clearly a gifted X's and O's guys, but operations and facilities, scouting and recruiting, he and that philosophy, only taking certain players with certain physical profiles for certain positions, that has spread throughout college football. You mentioned it, the nutrition, sports science, strength and conditioning and recovery stuff. It felt like Bama was on the cutting edge of investing in that stuff. And he also just changed how you assemble a staff.
Yeah.
You think about all the analysts, all the people in the room searching for each and every little advantage you could find. I think that's the biggest piece of his legacy is no one pushed everyone else around the country more than him to improve because
Yeah.
he was having a crazy amount of success. And if Bama was doing it, well, damn it, we better do it or else we're not going to be on the same level as them. And I think that was his biggest impact was the amount of excellence that he had, and that pushed others to try to be better, like, or else they were just going to continue to fall behind. So I think that's truly, the titles are obviously ridiculous, but the way that he pushed everyone else is maybe his biggest imprint on the sport, in my opinion.
And he did it. You know, every place has their issues, but he coached there a long time and without a whole lot of major drama. You know, like it was very well run. It wasn't just, you know, it was there's been some places throughout college football history where, hey, you want to win a title. In order to win that title, we're gonna have to deal with some stuff. All right, it's
You can just we can say it. Urban Meyer, he didn't have any Urban Meyer problems. You can just say it.
Yeah, and I think that says a lot. And you know, I think because of how stone cold of a competitor Saban is, I think people didn't really believe or trust in the fact that whenever he said he cares about these guys and making their lives better and you know, adding value to their futures, I think a lot of people took that as, you know, just talk and it's all about football. But whenever you look at the track record with guys graduating and not having a bunch of major drama, I believe it. So I think he's obviously the best ever.
The way that his former players talk about him too.
Yep.
You don't really hear anything negative about him, which when you're dealing with the amount of talent that he dealt with, that's pretty impressive as well. He convinced all of these guys that would have started all across the country to come to Bama and compete. And I had an immense amount of respect.
Wait to compete.
Yeah.
Year or 2 years before you got on the field. And that to me that's going to be the biggest hurdle that they face moving forward is the pipeline to the NFL. And there is a premium in the NFL on Nick Saban coached football players. There just is. Right. And is that still going to be there? And are guys going to be willing to wait their turn because of that? We'll see.
I really hope, and I don't think Nick Saban is just going to disappear from our lives. It sounds like he wants to have some type of role when it comes to shaping what this thing is going to look like, getting it a little more organized. He was pretty good at organizing a program. Let's have him. Maybe he'll take a crack at getting this thing back on the rails a little bit.
Well, I'll tell you, it's the timing is interesting because over the last month, a bunch of college coaches, you've heard them talking about how we need a commissioner. College football needs a commissioner. And Saban retires. And one of the things that he talks about is exactly, you know, trying to get some guardrails and some things in place to keep this sport from falling apart. Something to think about. Interesting timing.
And if they came out and said, Nick Saban is the new college football commissioner, I think everyone associated with college football would go, sounds good.
What are you going to say?
Exactly.
He doesn't know what he's doing. All right. Well, I know what they say. Well, he's gonna make the rules benefit Bama, but yeah, whatever. No, I would be all for it.
Yeah, I hope he's on game day. I really enjoy him on TV.
He's pretty good.
Does good. Funnier than people think, or at least I find him funny. So we'll see what his media future looks like. But he's done quite a bit of that stuff in the past with ESPN. I'd be surprised if he doesn't continue to have a role on there. Now, before we get to the Kalen DeBoer hire, how does Saban retiring affect OU? The vast majority of people that listen to this podcast are OU fans, and I think that's what they're most concerned about. Like, what is the overall impact for Oklahoma? Because my initial reaction is there's no way you can't say Nick Saban retiring isn't a positive thing for OU.
I agree. The only way it wouldn't have been would be if you lost staff or something to to that spot whenever they started hiring. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But, you know, Alabama doesn't get shuffled to the back of the deck. Okay. Number one, they are still in a really good place. They made a really good hire, but there is a wait and see. And when there's a wait and see, it leaves you a little bit of a window into some of those recruits. Now, I'm not saying Alabama's going to fall outside of the top 10 in recruiting anytime soon, but I went through their composite recruiting classes. You have to go back to like 2017 to where they weren't first or second. And then they were like fifth. And then you go back before that, like I went twice. It was like, and then they were first the year before that and first year before that. So I just kind of quit. Like, that's the thing though. Like, if you're 1 and 2 every year, and then now you're third, and then now you're fourth, that's a huge difference. Like, a lot of times they were the number 1 class and they signed like 8 5-stars, and the number 2 class signed like 3 5-stars. Like, that's a dramatic difference. So, like, Oklahoma, everyone else has a chance to chip away a little bit at some of those recruiting classes. And, you know, if you can win a game or two, start taking a game from them in Tuscaloosa a little bit more regularly than they did under Nick Saban, then it doesn't fall apart, but they become human, and college football kind of absorbs that a little bit and spreads it around. I think Oklahoma can be one of the main beneficiaries.
I'm with you. And that's the interesting part of this. And here in a little bit, I'm going to compliment Kalen DeBoer a lot. I think he's a heck of a football coach. But if you're Venables, if you're whoever going in a head-to-head recruiting battle with this new Bama staff, the reality is Kalen DeBoer has not sent a single Alabama player to the NFL. All those players, everyone that's in the wall, on those walls in those facilities, all those first rounders, Nick Saban did that, not Kalen DeBoer. And that's something when it comes up, you might want to point that out. And when you compare, let's compare what Venables has done. Even as when you just look at a defense coordinator, Venables has produced more high draft picks than DeBoer. So all of a sudden, you're going head to head with a guy. You got a much better fighting chance with the other guys, not Nick Saban, who can walk into any room and everyone just goes, damn it, Nick's here. That's recruiting against him was, I mean, what do you say? With Kalen DeBoer, he's not known as a dynamite recruiter. Now, everything I've been told about the guy is that he is a really good relationship builder, clearly a heck of a football coach, but he's never gone down into the Southeast and won recruiting battles against Kirby Smart. So it does feel like a door in the recruiting world with Saban leaving, that the door cracks open a little bit for everyone else, including Oklahoma. That's how it feels to me. Maybe DeBoer gets there and all of a sudden it's number 1 recruiting class after number 1 recruiting class after number 1 recruiting class. But he has not shown the ability to do that. So we'll see. All I know is that all these coaches across the SEC say, yeah, I'd rather recruit against Kalen DeBoer than Nick Saban. That's obvious.
Yeah. And, you know, to me, the thing that sticks out about it the most is, you know, and I'm not saying it's not a good hire. I think it is a good hire, but, you know, it's interesting to swing the mentality of that entire program from defense to offense.
Yeah.
And I've talked about this a lot, and I'm not saying that you can't win as an offensive coach. Clearly, it's been done over and over and over at every level. But programs are entirely different run under an offensive coach than a defensive coach, because the two sides of the ball, they have to operate like with a different mindset, and the details and like I don't know. That's, to me, that can be something that's going to be interesting, and he has to find a way. He can't just go in there and continue to try and be Nick Saban. He has to make it his program. How he does that, I don't know. It's going to be difficult to convince people to change some things that don't necessarily need changing, but you still have to do it. Like you can't really, you won't get the respect that you ever need to run the place if you just slide in and do what has always been done. At least that's the challenge that he has, is trying to figure that out.
Do you think it is helpful that Saban's still going to have an office there at the stadium? We've seen that stuff before, right? Bill Snyder, I think Bill Snyder still has an office at Kansas State. So this isn't something that's, this is the first time this has happened. On one hand, DeBoer can go to him at any time and say, hey, what do you think about this? What did you do in this situation? But also, you just have this massive, this idol sitting there just watching, overseeing everything.
It's not a problem until it's a problem.
Right.
You know,
That's a good point.
I think that Saban being there is however much he is going to be there. It's great to be able to lean on him and say, like, who are the first 10 donors I need to meet? What's the, like, give me the lay of the land in recruiting. It's so, like, however that conversation needs to go. Where it's not going to be good is if you stumble early and Saban's still standing around and everyone's talking about Saban being there. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, when you look at the timing of it, the SEC, with the addition of OU and Texas, the division's going away. The SEC, in my opinion, it's about to be as difficult as it's been.
Alabama's schedule next year is brutal.
Yeah. And you factor in NIL, and I don't know if it's created parity per se, but it does feel like some of the top talent has spread out more. And now that Nick Saban's not at Bama, my expectation is they won't get as many of the most talented guys because Nick Saban's no longer there. Now, Bama's still going to be a huge deal. We'll see what their NIL operation is like. But I don't know, man. It's going to be, it's impossible for him to have anything close to the amount of success that Saban had. I don't think we're ever going to see that again in college football.
Here's the truth of the matter. Nick Saban is a hell of a coach. He's not dumb. And I buy that he was worn out and it took a lot out of him this year. I buy that 100%. But I also am not naive to the fact that Saban could have stepped down anytime he wanted to. Now, he picked now. Well, why did he pick now? He picked now because it's getting more and more difficult to hang on to the top, to hang on to your players, to win recruits because of NIL and the new breakdown of the SEC, the new schedule. You've heard me bitch on this show forever about the way that the SEC has always scheduled. They've given their best teams an easier run at it. It's just, that's how it is. That's not going to be the case anymore. It's all, streamlined. It's, what you're going to get in the future. So it's going to be way more difficult. Now, I don't know what the 12-team playoff holds, but I mean, I'm not naive to think that Saban stepped down right now just because if he's tired and thought it was time. There's definitely it's going to get way harder for Alabama in the future.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see how Kalen DeBoer does. Now, everyone I've talked to really likes this guy. Guys that have coached for him or with him. I've talked to broadcasters that covered multiple of his games. Everyone says that he's just all about ball. Does a great job of building a tight-knit group, relates to the players well. Sounds like a guy that should have a ton of success with a really, really talented roster. But there does seem to be, and I don't think concern's the right word, but just the question, how's he going to do down in that area of the country? Because he's not from the South, nor has he ever coached or really recruited in that area. And I keep seeing people reference Brian Harsin and how poorly that went at Auburn. I don't think that's fair at all to DeBoer. I think that was just a weird circumstance, weird situation. It clearly failed miserably for Harsin. But there are questions. Hey, can he win those big time SEC, a lot of money being thrown at all these guys, these recruiting battles? So I think he deserves the benefit of the doubt until we're able to see how it plays out these first couple of years. But I don't really know what to expect. Man, we've seen how many great football coaches have we seen go somewhere and it just, for whatever reason, didn't work, where it felt like it was a home run hire. And as good of a fit as this feels like it is, I don't know, especially when you compare it to what Saban did there. So it feels like a great hire because the guy has won everywhere he's been. But also, let's remember this. Kalen DeBoer, who once again, I think is a great coach. I loved watching that offense that him and Grubb put together at Washington. But Nick Saban has won 7 national titles as a head coach, 6 of them at Bama. Kalen DeBoer has been a D1 head coach for 4 years. He's been a Power 5 head coach for 2 years. Saban's almost got double the national titles that DeBoer's got years coached in the Power 5. I don't know what to expect. I think he's a great coach, but is it going to work the way that a lot of people think it is? I don't know.
Well, the first thing we have to do is define success. What does success look like for DeBoer over the next 3 years at Alabama?
He has to win a title.
He has to win a title. That's exactly right.
That's Bama.
That's it. This isn't, hey, compete. I don't think this is going to work because it really can't work. He's not going to replicate what Saban did. So I think he's a good coach. I think he's going to do some good things there, but the situation, it's not winnable. Like you're not going to live up to that expectation. I don't think he'll win a title there. Could be totally wrong on this, but he's never, you mentioned his coaching. He's never coached at a place like Alabama. Like Washington's a good school. They've done some good things over the years. It is not live and die football at Washington. It's not. Have some success. We'll get behind you whenever you do. But it's okay if you have a down year and you're rebuilding. There is none of that. The pressure and the eyeballs and everyone peering in on what you're doing there and second guessing every single, you will have there's not going to be any benefit of the doubt. There's not going to be any margin for error on anything. Every little thing that happens is going to be scrutinized to pieces by your fan base, by the SEC, like media monster that just chews up people and spits them out. And I think that's going to happen to him. I mean, but that's not that I think it's going to happen to Kalen DeBoer. I think it would have happened to anyone. And then you reset a little bit and your expectations kind of like rationalize a little bit, and then you hire someone else, and then off you go. It's an unwinnable situation, in my opinion. And it has nothing to do with him, if that makes sense.
I think we'll see. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about what I said. Did I say? I think I may have messed up double. I don't know. I don't remember what I said. All I know is Nick Saban's got a lot of national titles, and Kalen DeBoer only had 2 years at Washington.
Yeah.
That'd be 4 times, almost 4 times. I don't know. I don't remember what I said. I'm kind of an idiot, though, so who knows? But you never know how a guy, and everything, once again, everyone I talked to said that he's very calm in big moments. And they attribute his calm demeanor in those moments as to why Washington's won so many one-score games. That his team reflected his attitude in those moments. I was told that by multiple people. But I don't think you know how a guy's going to react to being in that fishbowl, being the head guy at Bama after Saban. I don't know how you expect a guy to react. I don't think you know until he's in it, and we'll see.
Well, part of the reason you stay calm is because I mean,
no one's going to put a for sale sign in your yard.
No one cares. Not like they are about to. All right. If you would have lost one of those games, dadgummit, the championship run, the undefeated run is over, but you keep pushing forward. That ain't what it's gonna be like in Alabama. All right. It's gonna be a different beast. I wish him luck. It's gonna be fun to watch it from the outside.
No doubt about it. And Kalen DeBoer coming to Norman next year, not Nick Saban. I, for one, if you would have given me those options, I would have said, yes, I will take DeBoer instead of Saban. Thank you. But Jedd Fisch to Washington, brutal loss for Arizona. Yeah, we talked a lot about him heading into the Alamo Bowl with that matchup that OU had with Arizona for that one. And I love that hire for Washington. He was on the Seahawks staff a while back. I really like Jedd Fisch, and that's a brutal loss for those for that Arizona just that community, because it really felt like he had that thing rolling. But I think Washington gave him nearly $8 million a year.
Yeah.
So
it's gonna be hard to compete for Arizona. I loved the quote that I saw, and I don't know how much truth it is, and I don't even remember whose timeline it was on, but it wasn't a priority for Arizona to keep Jedd Fisch, which, I guess that's basically saying it was out of their price range to keep Jedd Fisch. Understandable. We knew that was going to happen. That's, kind of what I talked about. He's good, but the problem is he's too good. You got to live in that 8-4 range to be able to hang on to your coach at Arizona. Anything better than that, he's going to get poached.
If I was Jedd Fisch, I'd try to take several of those Arizona guys. I know that.
Yeah.
Arizona, the fans already hate you. Might as well take the best players as well, especially McMillan.
Yeah. Yeah. Stud.
And Fafita.
McMillan and Fafita, that's a really good start at it right there. And 5 on defense if he's still got eligibility left.
It felt like their entire team had eligibility left. That was a young football team.
Yeah.
Which, and this, not to stick on this whole thing too long, but Kalen DeBoer won at Washington with a lot of old guys. I mean, you saw it. They're in the national title game. What did they have? 7 or 8 6-year guys. Jedd Fisch was winning with a bunch of guys that he recruited and that him and his staff developed. Bunch of sophomores. And did Washington maybe upgrade at head coach? Just saying.
He'll have more success at Washington than DeBoer does at Alabama. Well, number one, because success is different.
Relative.
It's different those two places. But the first thing for DeBoer is he ain't gonna have Penix right away. All right. Penix was special. He's gonna have to have someone that can replicate that. You know, it all sounds like your offense is just the greatest thing ever. Whenever you've got a guy that can do everything that you ask of him, things can change pretty quickly whenever that dude's not back there.
Yeah. It's going to be really interesting, man.
It is.
Did we just really compliment DeBoer a lot, but also just completely crush him? I feel like that's what just happened.
Well, I don't mean to crush him. I just don't. That's what I think of the situation. I think it's unwinnable, and it would have been for anyone.
The new structure of the SEC combined with the expanded playoff, those two things, it just feels impossible for Kalen DeBoer to accomplish anything that feels even close to what Nick Saban did.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure it has anything to do with DeBoer. It just, this new structure just be hard, man.
And at the first sign of one tiny little crack, it's not going to be like it was with Saban. Well, Saban's going to figure that out. I feel sorry for those guys this weekend or whatever, you know. It's going to be a totally different reaction. Any tiny little crack, people are going to start chiseling it and seeing, you know. So it's tough. It's tough.